As Hashem, today's daf is Masechta Chullin Daf Samar number 68, and we are beginning the fourth parak of Masechta Chullin. So, just as it's well known, and we'll see where the source is, but an animal that's pregnant, if you shech the mother and then the fetus, the embryo, the baby is permitted without a shechita. In other words, even if you shech the mother and the kid comes out alive, then it does not need a shechita, because whatever you did with the mother applies also for the fetus. So the unborn fetus. So that's a given. So now the Mishnah discusses what happens, what's called born. I mean, what does it mean born? So let's see. Mishnah begins, Behema hamakasha leilad, a behema that's having a difficult time giving birth. Ha'ubar es yodei, the fetus stuck out its hand from the birthing canal, v'hachzira, and then returned it. So obviously that's not considered that it was born. It just, all it did was stick out its hand. So the din is mutter ba'achila. You're permitted to eat. You're permitted to eat what? You're permitted to eat, first of all, if you shech the mother, you're certainly permitted to eat the fetus. But the question, and that's going to be the subject of today, is what about the hand? It came out onto this world for a little bit, right? It just stuck its hoof out and then brought it back in. So what's the din with the hand? So we're going to discuss that. But certainly the fetus itself is mutter b'achila. But says the Mishnah, hoitzi es roishai, if the head came out of the animal, afal pi shechziroi, even if it went back in, so for some reason the head went out and then the animal sucked it back in, harei zeki yilid, that's a born animal, and therefore, in order for you to eat that animal, you would have to shecht it by itself. And if it died after it was born, then it's an avela. It was born. It's a regular animal, because the head coming out, it determines if the animal is considered born. Says the Mishnah, a person can stick a knife up the birthing canal of an animal, and then slice a piece off the uber. So then it's mutter ba'achila. After you shech the mother, it's mutter to eat. Why? Because once you shech the mother, anything inside the mother, even if it's sliced to pieces, is permitted to eat. So if, let's say, you stuck your hand up the birthing canal and sliced the hoof off, and you left it inside the animal, and then you shechted the animal, so you're permitted to eat the whole animal, the whole embryo. But if you cut the spleen of the mother or the kidneys of the mother, and then you shechted the animal, also b'achila, you're not permitted to eat that kidney, or you're not permitted to eat that spleen, because that's aver menachai. Okay, zahaklal. This is the general rule. Dava shebegufa. If you cut something from with the animal itself, and then you shech the animal, also you're not permitted to eat, because it's aver menachai, and it doesn't become permitted with the shechita of the animal just because you left it inside the animal. Just because you left the kidney, the cut kidney inside the animal, the cut spleen inside the animal, that's fine. As we learned previously, that if you remove a spleen, it's still a kosher animal. If you remove the kidneys, it's kosher. Nevertheless, you can't eat it because you cut it while the animal was still alive, and therefore it's aver menachai. V'she'ena gufa. But if you cut not something belonging to the animal, you cut the fetus, the embryo of the animal, so then mutter. If you left it inside the animal by shechting the mother, automatically the shechita will apply on the fetus itself. Says the Gemara. Let's discuss the first case of the Mishnah. The first case of the Mishnah, behema that had a difficulty giving birth, and then it stuck its hand out, its paw out, and then returned it. So it's permitted to eat. The question is, can you eat that paw? When you shech the mother, you can eat the fetus, but what about that paw that was stuck out? Amar Yehuda Amarav, the Iver Atzmei Atzar. He says that that limb remains Atzar. My Tama, what's the reason? The Amakra, because there's a pasuk that says, Ubasar Basoda Treifel Loisachelu. And the Gemara is darshaning, if meat goes into the field, let's say meat is supposed to be confined, and somehow the animal breaks through a barrier, it has a din like a treifa, and you can't eat it. So what does that mean? What does that mean? Ubasar basada treifa loisachelu is that soon as an animal broke through its border of being in the mother's stomach, and it broke through and it came out, so then it has a din like a treifa, and it's not permitted with the mother's, even if it brought its hand back in, you'll never be permitted to eat that paw. You can eat the rest of the animal, but not that paw that came out. As soon as the meat leaves its confines, neser, it becomes aser. We have this idea by kachim. You have a piece of kachim meat, right? Let's say a chatas meat, which is supposed to be eaten in the Beis Hamikdash. If it leaves the Beis Hamikdash, it becomes pasul. You can't bring it back into the Beis Hamikdash and eat it again. The kohen can't do that. So same idea. Since this left this paw somehow broke away from the mother's stomach, even if it went back into the mother's stomach, it will always remain aser. So the Gemara says, it's not. We learned in the Mishnah, that's the case of our Mishnah. What does the Mishnah mean? It's mutter to eat. What's mutter to eat? My lava eva. Doesn't the Mishnah mean to say that the limb itself is permitted to eat? So you see from here, not like Rav Yehuda Amarav, it's that the limb is aser, and says the Gemara loy aubar. The rest of the fetus is permitted to eat. That limb that was stuck out a little bit from the mother's stomach through the birthing canal, and then came back, is aser. Says the Gemara, if it's going on the Mishnah is telling us, our Mishnah is telling you that you're permitted to eat the fetus, my irya hechsire. Who cares if the paw, if the hand was brought back into the mother's stomach, does that make the uber permitted to eat? Even if the animal did not bring its paw back into the mother's stomach, you could still eat the ubar, because you just if you would shech the animal with the paw sticking out, so you could eat the ubar, the fetus, you just won't eat that paw. So what's the difference? What's the difference if you brought it in or did bring it in? Answers the Gemara, hu adin, that would always hold true, afagav the lo yachzira. Even if you didn't return it, hello, is everybody here?
I am now.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I just want to make sure. I just wasn't sure. Okay. So hu adin afagav the lo yachzira. Even if the animal did not bring its paw back in, you could still eat the body of the baby, the embryo. Since the end of the Mishnah has to be talking about a case that even if the baby's head, if the calf's head came out of the mother's stomach and then came back, it's already considered born, right? And therefore it's not considered, it would not be considered part of the mother, where you won't need shechita to it because it's considered born. And so the Mishnah had to teach you afal pishach ziroi, so tananami reisha hechziroi. That's why the beginning of the Mishnah also references that it returned the paw. But really, it's because of the seifa. That's the main chiddush of the Mishnah, is the end of the Mishnah. The Mishnah at the end of the Mishnah tells you the main idea. What's called being born, as soon as the head pops out of the animal, that's born. Even if the animal sucked its head back in, the kid's head back in, it's too late. Says the Gemara, the Sefer, my Kamashmalan, what's the Sefer trying to teach you? The cave in the Yatsa Roisha Havale Leda, that as soon as a head comes out of a mother, that's called born. Tanina, we learned this idea by human beings. And so why wouldn't it apply by an animal? And that's a Mishnah B'chairis. Ezehu b'chor l'nachla, ve'ena b'chor l'kahanim. Haba achan afolim, afal pish yatsa roisha chai, oy ben tes yatsa roisha meis. What the Mishnah is telling you is, let's say a woman had a miscarriage of a embryo who was 9 months. She was 9 months pregnant, and then the kid was born. And as soon as the head came out, the kid was dead. The next kid that comes out is really could be considered the firstborn in a certain way that you would have to give. That's the bechor, even though it's the second kid technically to come out, but he's just following a dead kid. So the second kid that comes out alive, that will be the bechor l'nachla, that will get the double portion. But you don't do a pidyon aben, because pidyon aben has to do with the first embryo coming out of the birthing canal. And so that's the Mishnah. So Tama, we only say that the second kid is considered bechor l'nachla is the Rosh Meis, because the first kid that came out, as soon as his head came out, he was dead. So therefore, the second one that comes out of the mother is considered the bechor. Ha Rosh Chai. But if the first kid that came out and his head was alive, and then subsequently he died, Haba Achrov, the next kid that comes out, that's not even a bechor at all, because the first kid was alive. So we see, bottom line is, you see that by human beings, as soon as the head is born, it's considered born. So why does the Mishnah have to teach this idea over here as well? So the Gemara says, do you want to say, we teach you by a human being this idea of a kamash malam behema. We have to teach you the same idea by a behema. The adam behema la yalef. You can't learn a human being from an animal. Why? The aim praise the behema. An animal does not have that birthing canal like a human being. It's much wider. So therefore, you could say the head being born. So just because you consider the head being born by an animal would not teach you by a human being. That's why the Mishnah over there has to teach you that by a human being, the head is enough to be born. And you wouldn't learn the behema to an adam just by because if we just say an adam, the head is decides birth. Because I would say by human being, a head is distinct. So as soon as the head comes into the world, that's when you would consider it born. But all animals look the same, pretty much. So therefore, we wouldn't say. Might say that an animal, when it's born, it would have to be totally born, not just the head coming out. The chashiv parts of the day by a human being, his face is significant. So only by a human being, I would say that when the head is born, that's born. But by an animal, I would not say that. So that's why our Mishnah has to teach you this idea that when a animal sticks his head out, that's considered that the animal was born. Okay, so basically where we're holding is that the Mishnah is really not such a chiddush, only to teach you one idea. The chiddush is that if the embryo sticks his head out of an animal, that's considered born. Says the Gemara, Hanami Tanina. But that's also another Mishnah somewhere. Shilya Shiyatza Miksasai, if the sac of the animal, the birthing sac, went out a little bit from the animal, Asura Bachila, you can't eat the animal, even if you shechted the mother. Why? Because you assume that maybe the head was in the sac and it came out. So that idea of teaching you that what decides birth by an animal is the head is another Mishnah. And the Mishnah says, "Kesimen vlad beisha, kach simen vlad behema." Just like what decides by human beings that a child is born, that's the same sign by an animal, that as soon as the head comes out, it is considered born. So therefore, we already have a Mishnah that teaches you the idea of the head. So then the seif of the Mishnah is unnecessary. So therefore, Rav may have it wrong. If you're going to tell me that the Reisha is a chiddush, to tell you that when it stuck its hand back in, it will paw back in, if it just stuck its paw out and it sticks its paw back in, you're permitted to eat the paw. So therefore, that's why Tana Seifa at the Reisha. That's why it says the Seifa, because the bigger chiddush is in the Reisha. That the Reisha teaches you that when it sticks its paw back into the stomach, it's permitted to eat the hand or the paw of the animal. Eli Amr, if you can say like Rav, loy the Reisha dafka, v'loy the Seifka dafka, lama leila misnei klal. If the Reisha is not serious, that means even if it was loyach zero, you're never allowed to eat the paw. And the Seifa is unnecessary to teach me that the head of the animal, if it's born, because I already know that from another Mishnah in Masechta Chulin. So lama lili misnei klal. So why do we have to have this Mishnah at all? Nothing seems to be a chiddush in this Mishnah. And says the Gemara, loy, lo'olam ha'uber. Really, like Rav said, the Mishnah, let's go again, and says, behema hamakasha leilid, a behema that has difficult giving birth, v'haitzi uber as yodai, and the uber stuck its hand out, v'hechziroi, mutter b'achila, you're permitted to eat the uber, but you're not permitted to eat the hand. So, but again, why does the Mishnah say v'hechziroi? Well, why does the Mishnah say even loyhechziroi? You're allowed to eat the uber? What is the difference if you returned it or not? The uber was always permitted to eat. The uber wasn't born. All it did was stick its hand out. The answer is, there's a big chiddush over here. If it did not return its hand, then you would have to, by the place where you cut, the place that was at the borderline, you wouldn't be allowed to eat that. You would have to cut a little bit more. If you want to see an illustration of it. Here, if it did not return the end on the right side over here, then in order to, here's the boundary of the womb, right in the middle, that dotted line. So then in order to eat this leg, if it never brought its leg back into the stomach, then you would only allowed to eat, further up on the leg. Because that part of the leg would not, you would not be allowed to eat that. You would not be allowed to eat that because it's somehow connected to the part that's outside. However, when it brings its entire leg back, then all you need to do is cut directly where the exact point of where it came out of the mother's stomach. So that's the Mishnah is telling you. Amarav, so therefore, that's what you say over here. Like Rav Nachman Yitzchak says, the place where you're cutting, that piece. If the uber brought its leg back in, so then all you do is cut exactly on the dotted line where the part of the leg that was already outside. But if it did not bring its leg back out, then you would have to go further in, that the one that was like on its way out a little bit, like an inch behind that, then you would not be allowed to eat that. That's what the Mishnah is teaching you. So Tashema, come in here. Behema hamakasha leilat, a behema that has difficulty giving birth. Bryce says behema has difficulty giving birth, and the uber stuck its hand out and returned it. Okay, and then you shechted the mother. Mutter b'achila, you mutter to eat. Okay, now what does this mean? Mutter, what is mutter to eat? Prashtus, it's mutter according to Rav. The uber is permitted to eat, but not the hand. Let's say it never brought its leg back and it shechted the mother, and then you returned it. Asa b'achila, you're not allowed to eat it. So here, it's a little difficult. What does that mean? Asa b'achila, what, you're not allowed to eat the uber? If it stuck its hand out and you cut it off, Then you shechted the mother. So let's say, as it stuck its foot out, you cut it off and then shechted the mother. Shebechutz tamei va'aser. The one that you shechted is tamei and aser. You're not allowed to eat that leg. V'shebefnim, what was left inside the mother, tahara mutter is tahara mutter. You're permitted to eat it because you shechted the mother. It works for the embryo. Shachat is imoy va'achaka chatachai. You shechted the mother, and then you cut this piece of meat, this leg. So after you shechted the mother, the leg was still sticking out of the mother's birthing canal. So then you shechted that piece off. So habasa maganavela, the basar that you cut off is nevela, divrei meir, because that leg that came out wasn't satisfied with the shechita of the mother, and therefore it's like a dead carcass that's touching the rest of the meat, and therefore everything becomes tamei. It's not really tamei. It's just like if you touch a treifa that was shechted, it doesn't mitama the rest of the meat. Bottom line is, ketani. This is where we brought it in. Ketana miya reisha. We learned in the beginning. If the uber brought its hand out and returned it, and then you shechted the mother, you're permitted to eat. My lava aver, doesn't it mean that you're permitted to eat the limb, not like Rav? And says the Gemara loy a uber. It's talking about the fetus itself. Ubar, if it's talking about the fetus itself, then the sefer makes no sense. Shachat es imoy, if you shechted the mother, and then it returned it. Aser ba'achila, it's aser to eat. Why? If it's aser to eat the embryo, via ubar, if it's the ubar, amai aser, then why is it aser? Why is the embryo ever aser? And says the Gemara, if so, again, same idea, same answer. That the question is, the ilbur is always permitted. The question is, if it brings its leg back, so then you could just cut exactly where it stuck its foot out, where it stuck its hand out. But if it did not bring it out, then you have to cut a little bit more in order to satisfy. Eini. So the Gemara asks one more question, and then we'll review. Eini b'ki asa v'imi bechazoi asa v'aisa masnisa b'yodoi. When Avimi came from Bechazoi, he brought a brisa. Brisa says, and here's the pasuk. The pasuk says, "Kol behema mafresas parsa v'shashash shtei parasos mala b'ger b'behema isa techela." If it chews its cud and it has split hooves, parsa and prosos. So the darshan, the brisa darshan's like this: parsa hechser, if it brought one hand back, one foot, if the embryo brought its foot back, echol, you could eat it. Process hechser, if it had 2 feet out and it brought it back, echol, you could eat it. You could eat it. So my love, hechser parsa, if it returns its foot back, echol parsa. Doesn't the brisa mean to say you could eat the foot? Answers the Gemara, loy, hechser parsa echol uber. If it brings its foot back, you could eat the embryo. Uber, if it's talking about the uber, my yiri hechsa filoy hechsanami. Even if it didn't return it back, because it's not born. So why wouldn't I ever allow to eat the uber? On this, Rav Nachman Yitzchak said, Rav Nachman Yitzchak, where it's sliced off. Where it's sliced off, then it depends. True, you're always allowed to eat the uber, that's for sure. But when it brings its foot back, then you could just cut off the part that was outside. But if it didn't bring its foot back, you have to cut off a little bit more. Says the Gemara, but isn't it 2 psukim? My love, there's 2 psukim that say you can eat it. The one teaches you that the limb itself is permitted, and also one is for the that the place of the cut. So we have 2 psukim to teach you an idea that perhaps the aver should be mutar. Answers the Gemara, loy. One pasuk teaches you that the mekoim chatach is permitted. When it's brought it back in, the mekoim chatach is permitted. Rab Shimon. Rab Shimon, it teaches you another idea. Rab Shimon has an opinion that if a cow gives birth to an animal that looks like a camel, which doesn't have split hooves, it has, let's say a cow gave birth to an unsplit hoof animal. So Rab Shimon says that animal, even though it came from a kosher cow, it is non-kosher. That's what Rab Shimon said. But that's only only if it was born. Because Rab Shimon says, call it ben para aser. If it was in the mother's stomach and you shechted the mother and then you open up the mother and you see a baby cow that does not have split hooves, then it would be shari, would be permitted. So let's review and then just have another 2 minutes and that's it. We're reviewing over here the opinion of Rav. Rav has this opinion. Rav's opinion is that if an animal gave birth, and the animal before it gave birth, it didn't give birth. The embryo stuck its foot out. So then Rav's of the opinion is that foot will forever remain asur. Okay, will forever remain asur. Why would that foot ever remain asur? Why wouldn't you say that if it brought the foot back in, it's the shechita of the mother should work for the shechita of the foot? The answer is because of a pasuk that says basar basoda treifa, that as soon as it broke through its barrier, it becomes asur. That's it. It doesn't work anymore. And we tried to slug up Rav, but Rav remains. Comes along, and then another minute, we'll just say what Ula's opinion is. Ula Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Ula says the name of Rabbi Yochanan. The Eva Atzmai Mutter. The Aver itself is Mutter. Again, it stuck its paw out. Even if of course it has to bring it back inside, because if it doesn't bring it back inside, then it would remain asa. But if it brings it back inside, unlike Rabbi Yochanan says that the limb is mutter. Amalei Rav Yehuda le'ula. So Rav Yehuda said to Ula for Rav u'Shmuel. By the way, Shmuel agrees to Rav. Damrei tavayu eva atzmai asar. How could you Ula say that the aver is permitted? Rav and Shmuel were great people, and they say it's asar. Amalei. So Ula responded, Man Yavle Ma'afra de Rav Shmuel Melina and Lion. I wish I could go to the grave of Rav and Shmuel and put the earth that's on their graves on my eyes. I would love them. I hold them in great esteem, but it's not true. Hachi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said, Hakol hoya bechlal basa b'sod treifel leischelu kishbar lachal akasav gabe chatas yotza chutz mechitzasa v'chazer asa chatas hu depara rachmana ba avakol milik even the hader shari. Like I said in the beginning, this din of breaking through and then you're not allowed to break back inside is only said by karbonos. Rabbi Yochanan said it was only a din said by a carbon. So let's say a kohen is supposed to eat a carbon katas in the base of Mikdash. If it goes out of the base of Mikdash, pasul, it's disqualified, even if he brought it back into the base of Mikdash. And since the Torah only said it by chatas, so only chatas has that din. But everything else, even if it got outside, you could bring it back in. An example of something, let's say Ma'aser Sheni, you're supposed to eat in Yerushalayim. Let's say I carry it out of Yerushalayim, you can't eat it anymore. What happens if I bring it back in? I could eat it, right? So same idea over here. Even if if the animal stuck its foot out, brought it back in, it's permitted to eat the animal once you shech the mother, even that limb itself. So the Gemara asks the final question, Meisvei, Basa Basada Trefel Sechev, Baal Talmud Lema, the fish would see about Ma'aser Sheni Bakun Shafu Pishyatsa Chutz Mechitzasa V'Chazar Mutarim. The Brisa says that Ma'aser Sheni and Bakurim that left Yerushalayim, or they go out of their mechitza, and that you bring it back in, you're permitted to eat. Yochal Av Zakein, Talmud Lema Trefa. Ma Talmud Lema. What? How do you learn it? Amaraba Kitrefa. Ma Trefa Kivan Nitra for Shuv Ein Loheta. Af Basar. Kivin sheyatsa chutz mechitzasei shuv ein leheta. So this brisa seems to say exactly what Rav said, that meat that goes out of its mechitza, and for example, the leg that entered the world, right? It wouldn't, once after it has a din left treifa. You can't bring it back into the mother's stomach and say, oh, it's as if nothing ever happened. No, the aver will remain asar. So tiyufta de ula, tiyufta, this is a refutation against Ula, who said that the aver atzmai is mutter, because I guess this is refutation against Rabbi Yochanan, and Rav and Shmuel is correct. So we'll continue with this tomorrow.
Thank you.